I always thought forever meant at least a full fiscal year. That's what I told myself the night before mediation, sitting in my cramped sublet with the TV on mute and city lights bleeding through the half-broken blinds. The apartment smelled like old carpet and someone else's cooking. The furniture came with the place, a sagging couch, a card table, 2 chairs that didn't match. 16 years of marriage, and this is what I got to take with me. A suitcase of clothes and my laptop. The laptop still had our old shared calendar on it. I scrolled back through the years like flipping through a photo album of my own stupidity. Every entry, the same pattern. Lila, supplier meeting. Lila, store walkthrough. Lila, contractor calls. And in smaller text below each one, Dan handling. Dan handling. That was me. Daniel Graves, the man who handled things. I built her empire with my bare hands and a calculator, not metaphorically, literally. I remember the first boutique, if you could even call it that. A gutted storefront on Marchant Street that smelled like mildew and rat poison. Lila stood in the doorway wearing a vintage dress she'd bought at a thrift store, her eyes wide with dreams and terror in equal measure. She had $2,000 in savings and a vision board covered in magazine clippings. "I can see it," she'd said, spinning in a circle with her arms out. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, racks of carefully curated pieces, not just clothes, a lifestyle. I saw black mold and a ceiling that sagged in the middle like a hammock. "How much is the lease?" I asked. $3,200 a month. "We can't afford that." "We will." She grabbed my hand. Her fingers were cold. "Dan, this is it. This is what I'm supposed to do. I can feel it." That was Lila. She felt things. I figured things out. She dreamed. I built. She painted the vision. I mixed the concrete. So I worked. God, did I work. 70-hour weeks became my normal. I kept my day job as an operations manager at a shipping company. That's where the real money came from, at least at first, but every spare moment went into that store. I learned drywall repair from YouTube videos. I taught myself basic electrical work. I spent weekends covered in joint compound and paint, transforming that wreck into something that looked like it belonged in a design magazine. Lila handled the aesthetic. She picked the colors, this perfect warm gray that made everything look expensive. She found the vintage furniture, the antique mirror with the gilded frame, the chandelier that probably came from a condemned hotel. She had an eye. I never denied that. She could walk into a thrift store and spot the one piece that was actually worth something hidden between the garbage. But I handled everything else. The permits, the contractors when we finally had money to hire them, the negotiations with suppliers who looked at us like we were kids playing dress-up, the insurance, the accounting, the inventory systems, the website, the shipping logistics. I remember the day we opened. Lila stood at the door in a black dress, greeting customers like she was hosting a party. She glowed. That's the only word for it. She moved through that space like she'd been born to it, making every woman who walked in feel like they were being let in on a secret. Like by shopping here, they were becoming part of something special. And it worked. The store succeeded. Not overnight, nothing ever does, despite what people think. But within a year, we were profitable. Within 2, we were looking for a second location. That's when the pattern really set in. Lila found the spaces. I made them work. She envisioned. I executed. She was the face, the brand, the tastemaker. I was the foundation. The guy who woke up at 5 in the morning to meet contractors. The guy who spent his lunch breaks on the phone with suppliers. The guy who learned commercial real estate law because we couldn't afford a good lawyer. The guy whose name nobody remembered. "This is Lila's place," customers would say. "Have you seen what Lila's done?" The local newspaper did a profile piece on her. Local designer builds boutique empire. There was a photo of her in the flagship store looking artistic and thoughtful. They mentioned her partner once in passing. No name. I didn't care. At least I told myself I didn't. We were building something together. Marriage was a partnership, right? Just because my contributions were less photogenic didn't make them less important. That's what I told myself for 16 years. The TV flickered. Some late-night show I wasn't watching. I got up and poured myself another whiskey, cheap stuff that burned going down. The bottle was already half empty. Tomorrow was mediation. Tomorrow I'd sit across from Lila and her lawyer, and we'd divide up our life like it was just another inventory spreadsheet. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my lawyer. Remember, stay calm. Don't let them provoke you. We have more leverage than they think. Leverage. That was one word for it. I pulled up the document folder on my laptop. Property deeds, lease agreements, business formation documents. I'd been reviewing them for weeks, ever since I hired Marcus and he started digging into the structure of Lila's empire. What he found was interesting. See, back when we were expanding, back when we were opening the second and third locations, Lila cared about two things: how the stores looked and how she looked. She wanted the perfect space, the perfect image, the perfect brand. She didn't care about the boring details, like who actually owned the buildings. The landlord of our second location was getting old, wanted to sell. The building was in a prime spot, corner lot, good foot traffic, parking in back. If we didn't buy it, we'd be at the mercy of whoever did. Might jack up our rent, might refuse to renew our lease, might knock the whole thing down and build condos. We should buy it, I told Lila. With what money? I've been saving, and I can get a small business loan. We'd need to put down 40%. She barely looked up from her sketches. If you can make it work, make it work. Just don't let it interfere with the store. So I made it work. I took out the loan in my name because my credit was better. I structured the purchase through an LLC. Carefully set up, so the building was owned by the entity, but I was the only member. Lila signed some papers. She didn't read them. She trusted me. The same thing happened with the warehouse 2 years later, and the flagship store building 3 years after that. Each time, Lila was busy being the visionary, the artist, the brand. I was the one talking to banks and title companies and commercial real estate brokers. I was the one whose name went on the deeds. Her boutique company, Lila Graves Collection LLC, was just a tenant. A very good tenant with favorable lease terms, sure. But a tenant. And I was the landlord. She never asked about the details. Why would she? We were married. What was mine was hers, and vice versa. That's how marriage worked. That's what I'd thought too, right up until 6 months ago when she handed me divorce papers. We were in the kitchen of the house we'd bought 4 years ago, another property in my name, because I was the one with the steady W-2 income. She'd been distant for weeks, coming home late, going to networking events and supplier meetings that lasted until midnight. Her phone was always face down. She password protected her laptop. I'm not stupid. I knew what that meant. But I'd been too tired to confront it, too deep in my own denial to admit what was happening. She put the papers on the kitchen counter, right next to my coffee mug. I'm filing for divorce, she said. No preamble, no emotion. She might as well have been telling me she was going to the grocery store. I stared at the papers. Why? Because it's over. That's not a reason. It is for me. She crossed her arms. She was wearing designer jeans and a silk blouse, probably $500 of inventory hanging on her frame. We've grown apart. We've been busy. You've been busy. I've been building something. The distinction hit me like a slap. I helped you build it. You helped. She said it like I'd held a door open for her once. Dan, you're great at logistics. You're dependable. You're steady. But let's be honest, you're not what I need anymore. What does that mean? She turned away, looking out the window at our landscaped yard. I've built something real, something important. I'm being interviewed by magazines. I'm being invited to fashion events. I'm becoming someone. And I'm not. You're... She paused, choosing her words carefully. You're still the guy who manages inventory and argues with contractors. You're beneath me now. Beneath her. Those 3 words echoed in my skull for days afterward. Beneath her. Like I was dirt. Like I was something she'd scraped off her designer shoe. I found out about Adrian 2 weeks later. Not from her. She was too careful for that. From her tablet, which she left on the kitchen counter while she showered. It was still logged into her messages. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't. But those 3 words, beneath me now, were still burning in my brain. The messages weren't hard to find. She hadn't even bothered to delete most of them. Page after page of flirtation, escalating into raw lust, evolving into planning a future, their future. He still doesn't know, she'd written. When are you telling him? Adrian replied. After I talk to Judith, I need to make sure everything's locked down first. I'm not walking away from what I built just because Dan might throw a tantrum. You built it. He was just the help. Exactly. God, I can't believe I wasted 16 years on him. He's basically a glorified janitor with a calculator. I'd taken screenshots, sent them to my own email, cleared the search history, put the tablet back exactly where she'd left it. That was 2 weeks before she served me papers. She'd been planning it that whole time, talking to Adrian about their future while sleeping in my bed. Probably talking to divorce lawyers while I was at work, strategizing how to take everything she could from me. Now I sat in this sublet, the screenshots saved in a folder labeled Evidence, and tomorrow we'd all sit down in mediation and pretend to be civilized adults. Marcus had seen the screenshots. He'd also seen the property deeds. His reaction was 2 words. Holy shit. Then he'd asked me a question. Does she know? Know what? That you own the buildings. I thought about it. Lila had never paid attention to that kind of detail. She cared about the stores, the brand, the image, not the infrastructure. I don't think so. She's about to find out. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Marcus. It was a DM on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. No profile picture. The message was simple. Thought you should know. Adrian was leaving Lila's office last Thursday around 11 p.m. His tie was undone. Just thought you should know someone's looking out for you. I stared at the message, probably from an employee, someone who'd seen too much and felt bad for me, or someone who just liked drama. Either way, it was confirmation I didn't need but appreciated anyway. I looked at the clock. Almost midnight. In 9 hours, I'd walk into that mediation room. Lila would be there with her perfect outfit and her perfect hair and her perfect righteous anger at having to share anything with the man beneath her. Adrian would probably be there too, playing the professional advisor, pretending he wasn't sleeping with his client. And I'd have my deeds. I poured the last of the whiskey, raised the glass to my own reflection in the dark window. To 16 years, I said to nobody, and to the moment they realize who actually owns what. I drank it down and felt it burn. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The law offices of Hale and Associates occupied the 14th floor of a glass building downtown that looked like every other glass building downtown. The lobby had the kind of aggressively expensive minimalism that was supposed to make you feel poor. White marble floors, abstract art that probably cost more than my car, a receptionist behind a desk carved from a single piece of dark wood. She looked at me like I was there to fix the copier. Can I help you? Her tone suggested I couldn't afford to be helped. Daniel Graves. I have mediation at 9. Her expression changed to something between surprise and pity. Oh, yes. Conference room C, third door on the left. I followed her directions down a hallway lined with more abstract art. Through glass walls I could see lawyers in their natural habitat. Mahogany desks, walls of leather-bound books nobody ever read, city views they probably didn't notice anymore. Conference room C was all windows on one side, overlooking downtown and the harbor beyond. The morning sun hit the water just right, turning it into hammered gold. It was the kind of view that cost about $5,000 a month in rent. There was a table that could seat 12, bottles of water, the expensive kind in glass bottles with minimalist labels, a coffee station with a machine that probably required an engineering degree to operate, art on the walls, more abstracts, these ones in muted blues and grays that matched the corporate aesthetic. I was the first one there. I took a seat facing the door, my back to the windows. Marcus had coached me on this. Never sit with your back to the room. Make them come to you. Control what you can control. I pulled out my laptop and the folder of documents, arranged them neatly, poured myself a water I didn't want just to have something to do with my hands. The door opened. Marcus came in first, mid-50s, gray hair, a rumpled suit that somehow looked more competent than the expensive ones. He had the energy of a man who'd fought 1,000 of these battles and knew exactly how this one would end. "Morning," he said, taking the seat next to me. "You ready?" "As I'll ever be." "Remember what we talked about. Stay calm. Don't engage emotionally. Let me handle the talking. When they bring up property division, that's when we show them what we have. And if she loses it, she will. Let her. The calmer you are, the crazier she'll look." The door opened again. Lila walked in like she was walking onto a stage. Designer dress, something fitted in navy blue that probably cost $1,000. Hair perfect, makeup perfect. The face she wore in all her press photos, serene, untouchable, slightly above it all. She didn't look at me. Behind her came a woman I recognized from the firm's website, Judith Hale, managing partner. Late 50s, gray suit, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She shook Marcus's hand, nodded politely at me, gestured for Lila to sit across from us. "Good morning," Judith said. "Shall we wait for Adrian, or—" "He'll be here," Lila said. She still hadn't looked at me. She was studying her phone like it held the secrets of the universe. Adrian Cole arrived 3 minutes later. I'd looked him up online, seen his profile on the firm's website. Senior partner, corporate law, 42 years old, perfect teeth, perfect hair, face like he'd been grown in a lab to star in pharmaceutical commercials. The kind of man who wore his suit like armor and his confidence like cologne. He walked in, radiating professional concern, carrying a leather folder, touching Lila's shoulder as he passed her, brief, casual, the kind of touch that could mean nothing or everything depending on who was watching. I was watching. He took the seat next to Judith, across from Marcus. Now it was 3 of them, 2 of us. They probably thought those odds meant something. "Shall we begin?" Judith said. She had a voice that could cut glass. "This is an informal mediation session to discuss property division and support arrangements in the matter of Graves versus Graves. Mr. Graves is represented by Marcus Webb of Webb Legal Services. Mrs. Graves is represented by this firm. Adrian Cole will be sitting in as additional counsel, given his expertise in business and property matters." Marcus just nodded. He'd already explained to me that Adrian's presence was unusual but not illegal. It was also incredibly stupid from an optics perspective, but Lila probably didn't see it that way. She saw her lover sitting beside her, supporting her. She saw power. I saw a man who'd be looking for a new job in about 20 minutes. "Let's start with the easy items," Judith said. She slid a document across the table. "We've prepared a preliminary division of assets, personal property, vehicles, bank accounts. These should be relatively straightforward." Marcus scanned it, passed it to me. It was exactly what I expected. Lila wanted the house, her car, the joint savings account, and full control of Lila Graves Collection, LLC. In exchange, I'd get my older car and whatever was in my personal checking account. About $8,000. "This seems equitable," Adrian said. His voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of a man used to winning. "Mrs. Graves built the business during the marriage. Mr. Graves had his own employment. The house is in both names, but Mrs. Graves has been the primary financial contributor to the mortgage for the past 3 years. That was technically true. Once the stores started making real money, Lila had started paying more of the household bills. She'd called it balancing things out. I'd called it letting me breathe a little. Marcus waited a beat before responding. The business is more complicated than this document suggests. How so? Judith asked. The business as defined here is just the LLC, the operating company. That's not the full picture. Adrian leaned forward slightly. Mr. Graves signed documentation years ago acknowledging that Lila Graves Collection LLC was his wife's separate business entity. He has no ownership stake in the company. That's correct, Marcus said. He doesn't own the company, but he owns something else. I saw Lila's fingers tighten on her phone. First sign of tension. Marcus pulled out the first document. The building at 1247 Marchant Street, where the first boutique is located. The deed is in the name of DG Property Holdings, LLC, a single-member entity owned entirely by Mr. Graves. He slid it across the table. Judith picked it up. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her eyes move quickly across the page. The second location at 89 Harbor Way. Same ownership structure. Another document slid across. The warehouse facility on Industrial Boulevard. Same. Another document. And the flagship store at 401 Westman Avenue. Same. The pile of deeds sat in the middle of the table like a grenade with the pin pulled. Lila looked at them like they were written in a foreign language. What is this? These are property deeds, Marcus said calmly. Your stores operate in buildings owned by your husband. That's not... She looked at Adrian. That's not possible. I built those stores. You built the business, Marcus said. You built the brand. You curated the inventory and created the customer experience. All of that is yours. But the actual buildings, the physical real estate, those belong to Mr. Graves. Adrian was reading the first deed. His face had gone from smooth confidence to something harder to read. He picked up the second, then the third. This can't be right, he said. It's right, Marcus said. You're welcome to verify with county records. Judith was reading now, too. I watched her face change as she understood what she was seeing. This wasn't just a complication. This was a nuclear bomb. When did these purchases occur? She asked. Over the past 12 years. Each property was acquired when the building came up for sale. Each time, Mr. Graves secured financing, structured the LLC, and completed the purchase. Mrs. Graves signed the necessary documents as his spouse for joint marital asset purposes, but the ownership is solely in his name. I signed some papers, Lila said. Her voice was rising. He told me it was for business registration, for tax purposes. It was for business registration, Marcus said, for his business, the property holding company. Adrian was reading the flagship store deed now. He'd gone pale, actually pale, like someone had opened a valve and drained the color out of him. The flagship store, he said quietly, the warehouse, the original location. He looked up at Judith. All of it. All of it, Marcus confirmed. The room was very quiet. I could hear the air conditioning, someone's pen clicking, my own heartbeat. Lila was staring at me now, really looking at me for the first time since she'd walked in. Her face was a mask of confusion and growing rage. You... She seemed unable to form a complete sentence. You told me you were taking care of it. I was, I said. My voice was calm. I took care of everything, just like always. You said we were buying the buildings together. We were married. I assumed together was implicit. You knew. Her voice was shaking now. You knew exactly what you were doing. I didn't answer. Marcus had told me not to engage. Let them process. Let them understand the position they were in. Adrian was reading the lease agreements now, the contracts between DG Property Holdings and Lila Graves Collection LLC. I'd structured them fairly. She paid market rate rent. The terms were reasonable. Everything was legal and proper. Everything was also revocable. These leases, Adrian said slowly, have 30-day termination clauses. Standard for commercial real estate, Marcus said. With appropriate notice, either party can terminate. Of course, that would leave Mrs. Graves's business without physical locations, but it's legally allowable. You wouldn't. Lila stood up. You wouldn't dare. Sit down, Judith said sharply. Not to me, to Lila. Lila sat. She looked like she wanted to flip the table. Adrian was still staring at the documents. His perfect face had cracked. He looked like a man watching his career implode in real time. This changes the asset division, Judith said carefully. Significantly. It does, Marcus agreed. Mr. Graves is willing to be reasonable, but we'll need to revisit the initial offer. The business cannot operate without these properties, which means the business has significantly less value than your initial assessment suggested. How much less? Adrian's voice was almost a whisper. Without the locations, without the flagship store that draws the customers, without the warehouse that holds the inventory. Marcus shrugged. It's essentially just a brand name and whatever's in the bank account. I'd estimate maybe 20% of your initial valuation. Lila's hands were shaking. You bastard! Mrs. Graves, Judith said. He set this up. He set all of this up. Years ago, he planned this. I planned for us to own buildings instead of rent them, I said quietly. That was good business. The fact that we're getting divorced now doesn't change that it was the right decision then. Lila. Adrian put his hand on her arm. She shook him off. And you. She turned on him. You told me this would be simple. You told me he had no leverage. Adrian opened his mouth, closed it. He had nothing. We need to take a break, Judith said. She was looking at me now, really looking at me, reassessing. 15 minutes, let everyone cool down. That works, Marcus said. They filed out, Lila first, storming like a hurricane, Adrian behind her looking shell-shocked, Judith bringing up the rear with the documents clutched in her hand. Marcus waited until the door closed. Then he smiled. That went well. She's going to lose her mind. She already did. Did you see Cole's face? He looked like he was going to throw up. He might. He just realized he's been giving legal advice to a client he's sleeping with, and that client is about to lose everything because of advice he gave her. Judith's going to crucify him. We sat in silence for a moment. Through the windows, the harbor glittered. Boats cut white lines across the blue, the world continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Marcus leaned back in his chair. So, what do you want to do? What do you mean? You have leverage now, real leverage. You could negotiate a fair split. Keep the buildings, let her keep the business, work out a reasonable lease arrangement. You could even come out of this with a decent settlement and move on with your life. Or you could burn it all down. I thought about Lila's face when she said, beneath me now. I thought about 16 years of 70-hour weeks. I thought about her laughing with Adrian in those text messages, calling me a glorified janitor. What do you think I should do? Marcus shrugged. I'm your lawyer, not your therapist. But if you want my professional opinion, don't make decisions based on anger. It feels good in the moment, but you have to live with the consequences. And your unprofessional opinion? He looked at me for a long moment. She tried to take everything from you. She called you beneath her. She cheated on you and then tried to make you the bad guy. If it were me, he tapped the deeds. I'd make her feel what it's like to lose everything she built. I looked out at the harbor, the boats, the glittering water, the city that didn't care about any of this. 15 years, I said quietly. I gave her 15 years. I built her dream with my own hands. And now she's trying to throw you away like trash. Yeah. So what's it going to be? The door opened. Judith came back in alone. Mr. Graves, she said, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Marcus looked at me. I nodded. He stood and stepped out. Judith closed the door, sat across from me. Up close, I could see the calculation in her eyes. She was a lawyer, a good one. She was doing risk assessment. "This is awkward," she said. "Which part?" "All of it, but specifically the part where one of my senior partners is sleeping with a client and giving her catastrophically bad legal advice." I didn't say anything. "I'm not going to insult you by pretending I didn't know about the affair. I suspected. I should have acted sooner. That's on me." She folded her hands on the table. "But I'm acting now. Adrian Cole will no longer be involved in this mediation. In fact, he'll no longer be involved in anything at this firm once I'm done with him. That's between you and him." "It is. But I wanted you to know that this firm takes ethics seriously. What he did was a violation of professional standards. It exposed us to liability, and it hurt you. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that when we resume this mediation, you'll be dealing with me directly, and I don't have any personal stake in seeing you destroyed. I just want to resolve this fairly and protect my firm's reputation." "Fairly. More fairly than Adrian's initial proposal, yes." She pulled out a different document. "Here's what I'm thinking. You keep the properties. Full ownership, no dispute. Lila keeps the business and the brand. We work out a new lease structure. Market rate, but long-term stability so she can actually operate. You both walk away with something." "What about support?" "Limited alimony. 2 years, modest amount. She built the business, but you enabled it. That has value." I looked at the proposal. It was reasonable. Fair, even. I'd keep the real estate. About $2 million in equity, minus mortgages. She'd keep the business. We'd both move on. It was the smart play. "Can I think about it?" Judith nodded. "Take your time, but Mr. Graves, whatever you decide it because it's what you want, not because you're angry. Anger is expensive." She left. Marcus came back in. "What was that about?" I told him. He read the new proposal. Whistled. "That's not bad. That's actually pretty good. She's trying to clean this up before it becomes a circus." "I know." "So?" Through the windows, a cloud passed over the sun. The harbor went from gold to gray in seconds. The boats kept moving. "Let's go back in there," I said. "I want to see Lila's face when she realizes exactly what she lost." Marcus smiled. "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have right now." We walked back to the conference room. Lila and Judith were already there. Adrian was gone. Lila's eyes were red. She'd been crying. Good. I sat down and looked at her across the table. Really looked at her. 16 years. This woman I'd loved. This woman I'd built an empire for. This woman who'd called me beneath her. "Let's finish this," I said. Adrian's firm had reserved spots on level 4. I knew this because I'd spent 2 nights watching patterns, learning schedules, understanding routines. I knew Adrian left work at 7:30 most nights. I knew he always took the elevator. I knew his Mercedes was parked in spot 4C between a BMW and a concrete pillar. It was 7:24 p.m. I waited by that pillar. My heart was doing something strange, not racing exactly, but beating harder than normal. My hands were steady, though. That surprised me. I'd expected them to shake. Instead, I felt calm, clear, like I'd finally found the right frequency after years of static. At 7:28, the elevator doors opened. Adrian stepped out, phone to his ear, laughing at something. He was wearing a suit that probably cost $3,000. His shoes clicked on the concrete. Everything about him was polished, perfect, successful. He didn't see me until he was 5 feet from his car. I stepped out of the shadows. "Evening, Adrian." He stopped. The phone came away from his ear. "I'll call you back," he said into it, then hung up. "Dan, what are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." "This is private property. Public parking, actually. Anyone can park here for $12 an hour." I held up a ticket stub. "See? Paid in full." His eyes narrowed. Are you following me? No, just happened to be here. Coincidence. Bullshit. Yeah, bullshit. I stepped closer. We need to talk. I don't think we do. I think we do. See, I've been thinking about our conversation at mediation, about how you told me I was going to walk away with nothing, about how you and Lila were planning my life like I was just some obstacle to get around. That's not what happened, isn't it? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd taken months ago from Lila's tablet. Want to see the messages where she called me basically a glorified janitor? Want to see the ones where you talked about cleaning me out? His face hardened. Those are private communications. They were. Now they're evidence. Evidence that you've been sleeping with your client. Evidence that you've been giving her legal advice while compromising her interests. Evidence that Judith is going to love when she decides whether to fire you or just destroy your career. You sent those to Judith? Not yet. But I could. I put the phone away. Or we could have a conversation. Your choice. Adrian glanced around the parking deck. We were alone. Cameras probably watching, but too far away to hear what we were saying. What do you want? He asked. I want you to understand something. You thought I was beneath Lila. You thought I was nothing. Some guy who handled logistics while she built an empire. But here's what you didn't realize. She built that empire on a foundation I gave her. And now I'm taking that foundation away. You understand what happens then? You're making a mistake. Am I? Let's talk about mistakes. You made one when you started sleeping with a client. Judith might forgive a lot, but not that. You made another when you underestimated me in mediation. And you made your biggest mistake when you helped Lila try to destroy me. Nobody's trying to destroy you. No? Then what do you call filing for divorce and demanding I walk away with $8,000 after 16 years of building her business? That's between you and Lila. You made it between us when you put your hands on her, when you whispered in her ear about how to clean me out. His jaw clenched. Watch your mouth. Or what? We stood 3 feet apart. I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was bigger than me, younger, probably hit the gym regularly. He could probably take me in a fight, but he wouldn't. Not here, not with cameras, not where it could destroy everything he'd built. I'm trying to help her, he said finally. She deserves better than what you're giving her. She deserves exactly what she's getting. She threw away 16 years like it meant nothing, called me beneath her, tried to take everything I built and pretend she did it alone. Now she's learning what happens when you throw away the person who holds up your world. You're being vindictive. I'm being fair. There's a difference. Adrian turned toward his car. This conversation is over. Not yet. I moved around him, putting myself between him and the driver's door. I need you to understand something. I own the buildings. I control the leases. I can shut down her entire operation with one piece of paper. And you know what? I might do exactly that. Because she needs to know what she had. She needs to feel what it's like to lose everything. That's not going to happen. Why not? Because you'll save her? With what? Your legal advice? Your firm connections? You don't have power here, Adrian. You have a fancy title and expensive suits and absolutely no leverage. I have lawyers. So do I. Better ones. Who aren't sleeping with their clients. His hand came up toward my chest. Not a punch, just a push. I'd been expecting it. I caught his wrist, twisted it just enough to make him off balance, and shoved him backward into his car. The Mercedes rocked. Adrian stumbled, caught himself against the hood. Don't touch me, I said. He straightened up, face flushed. You just assaulted me. You pushed me. I defended myself. There are cameras. They'll show exactly what happened. You're insane. Maybe, or maybe I'm just done letting people treat me like I'm nothing. I pulled my coffee thermos from my jacket. Heavy steel, the kind that could break things. Adrian's eyes went to it. What are you doing? Making a point. I walked to the side of his Mercedes. The driver's side mirror stuck out like a perfect target. Expensive, fragile, easy to break. Dan, don't. I looked at him. You told her she could throw me away. You told her I had no power. You were wrong. Chain link and concrete and red tags plastered on the doors like quarantine notices. I stood in the parking lot at 5:47 a.m., with my coffee getting cold in my hand, watching nothing happen. Steve's car pulled up at 6:02. He got out slowly, saw me, walked over with the expression of a man who knew this conversation wouldn't end well. "Morning," he said. "Morning. You approve those electrical estimates yet?" "Not yet." "Dan, it's been a week. The employees are getting nervous. Lila's business is hemorrhaging money. I've had 3 suppliers call asking when we'll be operational again. Tell them I'm reviewing options." That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Steve looked at the warehouse, then at me. "You're doing this on purpose." "I'm being thorough." "Bullshit. You're using the warehouse to hurt her. I get it. I get that you're angry. But what about the 12 people who work here? What about me? We didn't divorce you. We didn't call you names. We're just trying to do our jobs." He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something is right and caring about it are different things. "You're still getting paid," I said. "That's not the point. The point is, we want to work. We want the warehouse open. We want things back to normal." "Normal doesn't exist anymore." "Because you won't let it." We stood in the cold morning. Cars started passing on the street behind us, the city waking up, people going to jobs that still existed. "I'll approve the estimates this week," I said finally. "Really?" "Yes, but there's going to be a delay on the work. Permits, scheduling. Could be 3 more weeks before the warehouse is operational." 3 weeks? Maybe 4. These things take time. Steve shook his head. "You know what? I thought you were better than this. I thought you were the good guy in this mess. But you're not. You're just as bad as she is. Maybe worse. Maybe. You're destroying people's lives because you're hurt. I'm exercising my rights as a property owner. Keep telling yourself that." He walked back to his car, stopped halfway, and turned. "For what it's worth, I hope it's worth it. I hope when her business collapses and we're all unemployed and you're sitting alone in your sublet feeling victorious, I hope that's exactly what you wanted." He drove away. I stood there with my cold coffee and tried to feel bad about what I was doing. I couldn't. By noon, word had spread. The warehouse closure was extending. Lila's social media went from inspirational posts about resilience to radio silence. The boutiques were running low on inventory. Online orders were being delayed. Reviews were starting to turn negative. The empire was bleeding out. I spent the afternoon at the flagship store, not inside. I wasn't allowed in without permission during business hours. But across the street at a coffee shop with a good view. Watching. Foot traffic was down. I could see it from here. Fewer people going in. Fewer people coming out with bags. The staff looked stressed. I recognized Caroline, the store manager, standing at the register with her phone pressed to her ear. Probably talking to Lila. Probably getting yelled at. Not my problem. At 3:17, a delivery truck pulled up. Wrong truck, not one of Lila's regular suppliers. The driver got out, checked his phone, knocked on the store door. Caroline came out. They talked. She shook her head. He gestured at his truck. She kept shaking her head. He left. I texted Steve. "What was that truck?" "Emergency supplier. Lila's trying to work around the warehouse closure by doing direct-to-store deliveries. But that supplier wants cash up front. She's negotiating." "Will they deliver?" "Not without payment. And her cash flow is tight right now with all the delays." I smiled into my coffee. Cash flow problems. Weakening. My phone rang. Judith Hale. "Mr. Graves, we need to talk." "Do we?" "I'm calling to inform you that my client will be filing a formal complaint with the city regarding your conduct as a landlord. We believe your property inspections and delays constitute illegal retaliation. That's interesting. You have proof? We have timing. We have your obvious motive. We have the testimony of employees who've stated you're deliberately sabotaging the business. You have speculation. I have building code violations that actually exist. A judge will decide that. Good. I'd love to see you explain to a judge why I'm required to waive building safety concerns because I'm going through a divorce. Silence on the line. Then, Mr. Graves, let me be direct. You're hurting people. Not just Lila. Her employees, her suppliers, the whole ecosystem around that business. Not my problem. It will be when this ends up in court. You'll look vindictive, unstable. It won't help you in the divorce proceedings. I'll take my chances. Is there anything I can offer you to make this stop? A settlement agreement? Mediated negotiation? I'm trying to find a reasonable path forward. There isn't one. Lila made her choice when she threw me away. Now she lives with the consequences. That's not how the law works. Sure it is. I'm the landlord. I have rights. I'm exercising them. Everything I'm doing is legal. Legal doesn't mean right. Neither does 16 years of marriage, apparently. I hung up. Felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction. Just the cold clarity of someone who'd finally stopped caring about being the good guy. That night, I went back to the flagship store. After hours. I had my keys. Legally questionable, but who cared anymore? Inside was the smell of expensive fabric and marketing. The lights were off, but the city glow through the windows gave everything a blue cast. Mannequins stood like frozen people. Racks of clothes hung perfectly spaced. Everything curated. Everything designed. Everything about to collapse. I walked through the space slowly, ran my hand along a display table. Silk scarves that probably cost $200 each. Leather bags that could pay someone's rent. All of it beautiful. All of it worthless if nobody bought it. In the back office, I found Lila's planning boards. Mood boards with fabric swatches and paint samples. Sketches of future collections. Expansion plans for new locations. Dreams made of paper and pins. I could destroy all of it. Right now. Just tear it down. Burn it. But that would be too obvious. Too emotional. Better to let the business die from neglect. Let the warehouse stay closed. Let the suppliers cut her off. Let the cash run out. My phone buzzed. The anonymous account. You in the flagship store right now? I looked around. Cameras? Someone watching? I typed back, who is this? Someone who knows what you're going through. Someone who's been waiting for you to fight back for years. Why? Because we've all watched you get treated like you're nothing. We've watched her take credit for your work. We've watched them throw you away. And we're done watching. We want you to win. I stared at the message. Why not identify yourself? Because this needs to be your victory, not ours. But know that you're not alone. We see what you're doing. We support it. Keep going. The conversation ended. I stood in the dark office surrounded by Lila's dreams and felt something shift. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for everyone who'd been invisible, everyone who'd been beneath someone, everyone who'd built something only to watch someone else take credit. I turned off my phone and left the store. Locked up carefully. Drove home through streets that were starting to feel less like a city and more like a battlefield. Tomorrow, I'd approve the warehouse estimates. But I'd make sure the permits took forever. Make sure the work got delayed. Make sure every step forward came with 2 steps back. I'd bleed the empire slowly. Watch it die by degrees. And when it was over, when Lila stood in the ruins of everything she'd built, I'd make sure she understood exactly who'd destroyed it. Not some faceless force, not bad luck or economic downturn. Me, the man beneath her,